What's up, guys? I just wanted to hop on before the episode that you're about to hear starts. I don't even know how to put this into words, but obviously there have been some things that have been happening in the world and in this country now for the better part of a month, and none of it good, between the pending Supreme Court decision about a woman's right to choose to the just string of awful mass shootings in Buffalo and in Southern California, and least of all in Texas today, where 19 children and 2 adults were killed at an elementary school. I don't know. I just felt, as someone with somewhat of a platform, even if it's not a huge one, I just felt like I needed to start this by saying, obviously, just thoughts and all condolences to the victims of these terrible circumstances. And just that stuff is no longer enough, the thoughts and the prayers. It's just not enough. And for you to go out and just use your voice, use whatever platform you have, no matter how big or small, encourage people to try to incite change. The stuff that's been happening is a wholly American issue, and I don't know whether it's the laws that are the problem or it's the people, but clearly something needs to be changed. And for people to just use your voice and go out and march or vote, run for office yourself if that's what it takes. But I just wanted to hop on, before the episode airs, and just, we are aware of the things that are going on in the world. We just don't usually like to talk about it up top because of how we present ourselves. So I just wanted to include this little preface before the episode. Just take care of your loved ones, hug them a little tighter, let them know that you love them, because you never know, right? So that's all I can really muster up to say. It's just, I think we've seen more than enough of these, certainly in my lifetime, that real things need to start happening. And I don't think more of these things need to happen in order for people to get off, their rear ends and try to do something. So if we can't do it, we can hopefully present people with power reasons that they should be doing it. It shouldn't take the murder of 19 kids for something to change. So I don't know. I don't know where this goes, but I just wanted to preface that before we jump into the episode. So, and I hope that whatever we do for you guys, I hope you can listen to this and enjoy what we give to you every week, because we do try to have a good time, and hopefully you can find a little bit of a escape and levity in listening to us and other podcasts and other things too, because, you need that too. So thanks, guys. We'll see you on the other side when the episode starts. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Project Infinite podcast, the podcast covering the ever-expanding and infinite multiverse of fandom, from movies, comics, TV shows, video games. We got you covered. My name is Rob. I'm here, as always, with Courtney and Court. This week, we're taking a trip back to the 80s.
Who doesn't love the 80s, man? It's a birthplace of so many tropes and so many nostalgic moments, so many characters, action heroes, moments, music.
All of which we're going to talk about because we have our second award show coming up.
Yeah. Maybe we should just be we're basically better than the MTV Awards at this point.
Yeah, we got so many prestigious awards to give out.
We're not at Oscar level yet, but I think we're getting up there with the Kids' Choice Awards for Nick.
Look, we're one slap away from being the Oscars, so...
We are. And there's nothing but space and opportunity in between the two of us. Yeah, just couple mics and couple laptops.
Just let a guest come on here and get out of pocket.
Yeah, it's over. It's over. Do not test me. You will fail.
Yeah, so on the precipice of Top Gun Maverick, we thought it would be fun to take a look back at some of our favorite 80s movies and dish out some awards and accolades that mean absolutely nothing to the ladies and gentlemen that are involved in these movies, but it means something to us.
It does mean something to us. You know how many so many of these movies I formulated my personality on?
Oh, man. So, yeah, we got some stuff to talk about with that. Before that, we have quite a bit of news to cover, starting with a bunch of trailers.
Yeah.
Starting with The Boys trailer. So, Amazon Prime's hit TV show, the alternative superhero kind of show, The Boys got a trailer.
Dare I say the most realistic version of what superheroes in real life would be like?
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. So this trailer was obviously a setup for season 3, and Homelander is
off the rails.
Yep.
He's too far gone at this point.
Yep. So fresh off the end of season 2, Homelander is obviously the model of what a superhero should be, or at
to
least
the public eye.
To the public eye.
But to the private eye, he's the very antithesis to what a superhero should be.
Yeah, so he's becoming unraveled. And then what else happens in this trailer?
So basically the big thing about season 3, the two big things are, one, Billy Butcher and the boys are getting powers. They've got access to a pseudo version of Compound V, which temporarily gives them powers, which is something that happens in the comic, but this season is going to pay off so many of the big comic storylines, and I think that's what's going to happen. The other side to that is, like you said, Homelander's becoming unhinged. He's finally going... I mean, it's so crazy to say that because he has, but to the public eye, I think this is going to be the first exposure to him being, really stepping off the beaten path and really just going full, full Omni-Man.
Pretty much.
Never go full Omni-Man.
I guess the other thing, too, is the Soldier Boy.
Yeah, Soldier Boy. That's the third piece of this puzzle.
Jensen Ackles, obviously of Supernatural fame, and, not a ton else. But, hey. What a bag for Supernatural.
Yeah. If Homelander is the evil Superman, then Soldier Boy is the evil Captain America, essentially.
Yeah, similar backstory to Captain America, and he's here, he's violent, and he's ready to roll. Yeah,
which is the boys in general. It's just it's violent, it's so off the rails. It's like fun, it's gruesome, it's crazy, and they really have caught lightning in the bottle of this show. And I think on top of having Invincible in the fold for Amazon Prime, they really, they're really doing good things over there.
Yep. So I'm excited, particularly for Jensen Ackles, because obviously he has been, I don't even want to say he's been shackled by the CW doing Supernatural, because it's something that he wanted to do and wanted to see through. Obviously, going back to when that show started, when it went in its heyday, it went 13 seasons, which is crazy kind of for a live action fiction TV show that's not Law and Order. 13 seasons for Supernatural, and he's finally gonna do some more stuff, and I think if this goes well, I think it could propel him to even greater heights. Right. We talked about
I think the greater height is Green Lantern. I think that's the height.
We talked about him almost being Hawkeye in the MCU, but he stuck to his Supernatural commitments.
I wouldn't have hated him as Hawkeye a bit, because I feel like he would have been a little bit more comic Hawkeye if he got chosen, because Hawkeye's a little bit more standoffish than Jeremy Renner is. So I can see that.
Definitely excited for that. Definitely excited to see where this show goes in general. Like you talked about Amazon Prime, they have this, they have Invincible, they have the Lord of the Rings show coming up. So Amazon Prime is at a time when Netflix is potentially at its weakest. Amazon Prime and Disney Plus and HBO Max are moving in.
Yeah, Paramount Plus even is putting their foot in the game.
Netflix is like, but Stranger Things is coming out. Relax. Boy. And Black Mirror is coming back.
Yeah, I mean, we could talk about Stranger Things real quick.
Yeah, sure. What do you want to talk about?
The fact that every episode's a movie?
And the last episode is going to be 2.5 hours? Right.
So we got the last trailer for Stranger Things season 4, or Stranger Things 4. I'm on board with the story and everything. It's cool. And the gap is really everybody's big, gripe is it's taken so long in between season 3 and season 4. They're basically adults now. They're all above 18. They're all old. They're all old men and women.
I think I predicted the Black Mirror thing, by the way. a few weeks ago.
Oh, yeah.
When we were like, Netflix, what are they going to do? They're losing subscribers. Well,
Black Mirror.
Black Mirror is coming back.
Go back to what they know, man.
Stranger Things is coming back. What else can they bring back?
House of Cards.
House of Cards.
Yeah, maybe not. Maybe not.
Mindhunter? They could do another Mindhunter?
Sure.
Johnny Mindhunter?
Yeah, Netflix still has hits. It's just they need the seasons to actually come out.
Yeah. So they're going back to the well.
Yeah.
So Black Mirror is obviously getting another season, and then Stranger Things is this epic penultimate season.
It feels like, penultimate season, but what's the final season going to look like? I feel like the final season might be shorter than anything because
it's going to be one episode.
Yeah, one episode.
It's going to be the Snyder cut of Stranger Things. 4
hours of Stranger Things goodness. But yeah, so basically, like we said, we already talked about the first Stranger Things trailer for season 4. Hawkins. So basically, the entire world itself is being reverted into the Upside Down. Dang it. Got him again.
Can you not?
Yeah, whatever they call that being's in there running amok. They said that being that's in there is pretty practical use, I'm pretty sure they said, which is going to be cool. I do think they took it, whatever that being is, it took Billy's body and it's basically, it terraformed it and it's puppeting himself around. Obviously Eleven's going to there's no way she doesn't get her powers back this season.
No, yeah,
we're probably going to see some more of her brothers, quote unquote brothers and sisters this season too. And like I said, I think this is the demise of one or more of the characters. And I think the main character that's going is Dustin. I think he's the most, he's on the application list of people to go. The funny best friend is probably at the top of the list. So.
Yeah, because they got Sean Astin in season 2.
Yeah, they did.
So, obviously I'm looking forward to it. I don't think you can't not look forward to it.
Yeah, the length is very eye-opening. So basically the big news from this is the entire, because they're splitting it, what is it, 5 episodes? Yeah. Or it's 7 and 2, right?
Is it 7 and 2 or is it 5 and 2? I can't remember.
I know it's 9 episodes.
So yeah, it's 7 and 2 because I know the second part after the break is 2 episodes.
Right. So, and those last 2 episodes, I think the penultimate episode is how long? It's like an hour 50.
Hour 50.
And then the last episode is 2 hours and 30 minutes. So just to preface that, an episode of TV is going to be longer than the last Doctor Strange movie. It's going to be longer than the Top Gun movie. It's going to be longer than everything.
Except for the Batman.
And Avengers Endgame.
Yeah.
And the Snyder Cut.
Man, that's a lot.
It's a lot.
It's a lot to dump on people. But, I guess they're banking on people wanting to consume that.
Well, yeah, I think they took the break very literally, and they were like, all right, here's everything. Here's everything. Every deleted scene we're going to delete, you guys get everything now. Leave us alone for the next 85 years of our life. We're gonna get them back when they're like 45. You done did it now.
Stranger Things Maverick. Speaking of Top Gun and speaking of Tom Cruise, we got a Mission Impossible trailer.
Oh my gosh.
What is this one called? Dead Reckoning?
Dead Reckoning Part 1.
Part 1.
Man, I am so on board with this Mission Impossible franchise. Ever since Ghost Protocol, I was on board. And Fallout, I said it before, I'll say it again. It is one of my favorite action movies that's ever been released. I think it's one of the best made action movies of all time. I know it's a very big superlative to have, but
I don't think you're wrong.
Yeah, it's just, I always go back to, there's one specific sequence in that movie. It's one Rebecca Ferguson. They're kind of in the square. They're kind of in the circle, and he's kind of he's driving against the traffic, and it's just this like prolonged action sequence with there's like no score behind it. It's just Mission Impossible being Mission Impossible. There's stakes, there's emotion, like it's everything you want out of a good movie, just dialed up, and it's really refined too, because a lot of stuff slips through the cracks when you're making movies and franchises. After a while, you get a little bit lazy. Fast and Furious is like the comp, like they kind of just have fun. It's not really like anything to take too seriously. You can really take these Mission Impossible movies seriously, and Dead Reckoning, because I believe this is the last 2, if I'm not mistaken. So I also talked about Christopher McQuarrie being one of my favorite filmmakers that not a lot of people probably know about. He did Jack Reacher. Is it Jack Ryan or Jack? I think it's Jack Ryan. We did this last time too, and I couldn't figure it out. I think it's Jack Ryan. No. Yeah. No, it's Reacher.
No, it is Jack Reacher. Because Tom Cruise is in Jack Reacher.
Right, and I'm pretty sure that was the first time they worked together, was on either on that or Ghost Protocol.
I know they did. I think they did.
They did something else, right?
Well, he didn't direct Edge of Tomorrow, but he was on the writing team.
Yeah, he was on the writing team. Christopher McQuarrie was on the writing team, and he helped write the screenplay, and he was an executive producer on Top Gun Maverick, and obviously he's directing all of these Mission Impossible movies. So I love him behind the chair and just in the room. I said before, like, follow him on Twitter if you're interested in anything movie related, because he'll like talk to the fans and like he'll give actual like tips and tricks on like how he does some of the stuff. Like, that just tells me like you're invested in what you're doing.
Yeah.
And, like, you actually have like, you know, you have knowledge and like you care about what you're doing. So these Mission Impossible movies, like I said, they're great. These new age, like, they easily could have said, oh, who cares? But Tom Cruise wouldn't allow that to happen. And then I'm so glad he found Christopher McQuarrie to equally say, let's not let this happen. Let's make some good content.
Yeah, and the last three have been all pretty good.
Yeah.
You know, you talk about Rogue Nation, you talk about Fallout, you talk about Ghost Protocol. All really solid entries in the series.
Right.
So, and then this one split into two parts, which Tom Cruise stepping his foot in the part 1, part 2 cinema style.
You gotta get one. You gotta get one to be an all-time movie, be an all-time actor. You gotta get a part 1,
and
part
this
2.
one looks just every bit of the spectacle as all the others.
Man, yeah.
You know, Ethan Hunt can't get away, can't get out.
He can't. And that's the big thing about this trailer is he needs to choose. He needs to, because he's been almost disavowed so many times. You know, all this stuff. We already know, if you're a fan of the franchise, you know all the crap that he's been through. But this time he has to make the choice if you're going to be with this falling empire, or you're going to join us. You're going to join the bad guys that could be the good guys. But we're probably the bad guys.
Probably the bad guys.
Because this is an action movie.
Yep, and it's a Mission Impossible movie.
It's a Mission Impossible movie.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, addition Haley Atwell to the squad. Maybe, we'll see, because Rebecca Ferguson kind of is the same thing, but we'll see. I do think that Haley Atwell might be a little bit more villainous than let on, because Rebecca Ferguson was the antagonist turned protagonist. So we'll see. And Henry Cavill was the protagonist turned antagonist. He loaded his hands. That was great.
Carrie Elwes is in this.
Yeah. Oh, this is going to be good, man.
That comes out in July. We'll probably revisit the other Mission Impossible movies.
Yeah, we might break it in half. We might do the first, the old age, and then we'll do the new age, because I am itching to talk about Mission Impossible Fallout.
Me too. And then the other couple of trailers we got from the Marvel side, we got another Ms. Marvel trailer, which gave us a better look at not just the character, but also kind of like her story. And then we got more of a look at those controversial powers.
Yeah.
We got more of a look at that. But more importantly, we got a She-Hulk trailer.
Yeah, so She-Hulk, Attorney at Law. So now it has a
quirky title.
And it's kind of being sold as like a workplace comedy a little bit. It's like it's fun. It's a good feeling trailer. Like, I do think so. The big question is, where does this show take place? Because Mark Ruffalo's Hulk is in this, and he's in this. Like, he is in this for a while.
Yep.
He kind of seems like how Hawkeye and Kate Bishop were in the Hawkeye series. Like, it feels like that. Like, he's going to be in it for a little bit. We got Tim Roth back as Emil Blonsky, which we actually last saw, funny enough, in Shang-Chi. And guess who's back in this movie? One of the goats of this podcast himself, Benedict Wong, as Wong.
Because he didn't die in Doctor Strange.
Sorry. I don't think he's surviving the next Doctor Strange.
All right. You just keep putting out the universe, and Wong's going to keep proving you wrong.
He probably is, but we'll see.
Unless he dies in She-Hulk.
Heavy doubt. I don't think anybody's died in She-Hulk. She-Hulk just looks like a lot of fun.
It does look like a lot of fun.
Yeah, so it's going to be 9 episodes, and I think, 30 minutes around each episode instead. So yeah, I think it's going to be a lot of, she might defend some low-level villains. She's going to go up against Titania.
Played by Jamil.
Yeah, of A Good Place fame. I love that show. So yeah, I think it's probably going to give a lot of Good Place vibes. It's going to be like one of those, it's going to be like more, it's probably going to be the most comedic out of any of these shows. Like, we kind of probably need that after Moon Knight. We probably need a little preface.
A little levity.
A little levity.
Would be nice, yes.
Because we've been sad for a little bit.
So,
yeah, we need Thor, and then we got to get She-Hulk. So just some happiness.
The CGI.
to address the green elephant in the room.
The green 9-foot tall woman in the room.
Yeah. Not great.
Not great.
I know so I think people are a little bit too quick to, like, there's a two-sided coin. Like, I feel like sometimes we defend these companies a little too hard, as if they don't have, like, unlimited resources, but... Especially Disney. However, we have been living through a bit of a pandemic, if you haven't noticed, in the last 2.5 years. A what? So... I think what they said is, like, they're backlogged on, like, everything. Like, getting animators just in the rooms to animate these characters. So, I do think it will get better when the show gets out. Relax. I think people are trying to focus too much on that because they're angry at the world. Yeah. Relax, nerds. It'll be fine.
Remember what you did to Sonic?
Yeah. Yeah, and Sonic figured itself out.
And look, Ugly Sonic's back.
Ugly Sonic is back. Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers, the unsung hero of the year in movies so far.
Ugly Sonic got his redemption in Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers.
He got Andrew Garfield in Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers. It was incredible.
People are gonna start pining for Ugly Sonic to get his own spin-off film.
Release the Ugly Sonic cut.
I don't think anybody wants to see that.
Yeah, I don't. Looking at it for too long might give you nausea, so I don't know.
But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I want to see what they do with this kind of, this. They don't have a character like her, in the MCU, because obviously Deadpool is like the closest comp to what this type of character is. Right. We haven't seen Deadpool in the MCU yet, so we got She-Hulk, we got Jennifer Walters, Mark Ruffalo obviously is in this, and then the Abomination piece is super interesting to me.
Right, and then Wong attached to that, because last time we saw Abomination, Wong was kind of training him, it kind of looked like. I think what's happening is they're trying to I think the Thunderbolts are forming. I think, like, that's the only thing that makes sense, like, but I think Wong's in on it, because what I think's happening in this world is, like, there's no Avengers at this time. Like, there's no, so I think... Even now, like, the other, like, parties of the world are going to get on board with, like, all right, there's no Avengers. We need a team. Like, there needs to be a team out there. So Blonsky's going to take the spot of Hulk. Now we have John Walker taking over for Captain America, because Sam doesn't seem like he's an Avenger at this. There's no Avengers. So we have your Black Widow comp now. Like, we have your Hawkeye if we want to go get Kate Bishop. Like, there's characters to replace. So I think I wouldn't be surprised if Val shows up in this show as, like, hey, Val, hey, Abomination,
Elaine,
trying to be part of the Thunderbolts. It's gonna be real cool. I got a guy that's got anger issues and a Medal of Honor. And I've got Yelena Belova, everybody's favorite.
Everyone's favorite. Everyone's Russia's sweetheart.
Yelena Belova.
Yeah, and then so speaking of Marvel and people who have worked with Marvel, so John Watts, that coward, stepped off of Fantastic Four. Lo and behold, he's like, I need to get away from doing big franchise films, and now he's doing a Star Wars movie. you know what happened. I mean, what happened was they were like, all right, John Krasinski's Mr. Fantastic. And then they were like, what if he just directed the movie? He's a pretty good director. He does The Quiet Place. Him and Emily Blunt are basically Mr. Fantastic and Invisible Woman. We already got half of the Fantastic Four. And then John Watts is just like, what am I, chopped liver? And they're like, yeah. Yeah, you are.
Yeah, you are.
Yeah, thanks for Spider-Man.
Thanks for Spider-Man. Get out of here, man. You're fired. And he's just like, you know what? I'm going to walk 7 seconds down the road, and I'm going to go right to the Star Wars.
Walk across the hall to the Star Wars office.
I'm going to knock on Kathleen Kennedy's door.
Because that's how I imagine that that's how I imagine Disney set up with their films. They got, like, the Marvel office, and then it's like, says, like, Kevin Feige on the door.
Yeah, and then it's like
right across the hall.
Yeah, it's like Star Wars.
This is Star Wars, and it says Kathleen Kennedy.
Yeah.
So John Watts got thrown out of the Marvel office, and he was like, I'll show you guys.
And then Kathleen Kennedy just walks out. She's just like, dang, I really need a director right now.
I need a director for a film that's set right after Return of the Jedi. John Watts is like,
I like Return of the Jedi. I've seen that movie.
I've seen that. I've directed things. And she's like, you have directed things. You're hired.
Yeah, you're hired. So, yeah, that movie, what did they explain this movie as? Like a coming-of-age Star Wars movie?
Set after Return of the Jedi. Yep.
Cool.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, we'll see. Maybe it's a young Jedi. Maybe we need that. What did I say? Well, I said it. I think they're taking a break, but once we get into episode, what is this going to be? Episode 10? Or it's not going to probably be because that was the end of the Skywalker. Whatever the new age of Star Wars is going to be that's set after the Rise of Skywalker, give us some new stuff.
Yeah, and then I always like how anytime they announce a new Star Wars project, people are like, well, what about Rian Johnson's thing? And they're like, Rian Johnson's thing is...
Remember what happened the last time Rian Johnson made a Star Wars movie?
It's still around.
The world almost exploded the last time he made a Star Wars movie.
Yeah, what happened? Yeah, correlation. Last Jedi was before Last Jedi, no pandemic. After Last Jedi, pandemic.
It's Rian Johnson's fault.
So you draw your own conclusions from that. But Sure, John Watts can do a Star Wars movie. I mean, he did a coming of age movie.
Yeah, he did
Spider-Man Homecoming.
He did 3 coming of age movies. He did a coming of age trilogy.
So
cool.
What better to do with trilogy than Star Wars? Star Wars invented trilogies.
Right.
So and then other Marvel news, so they obtained the likeness rights to Stan Lee, which
I don't know how to feel about that at all.
I don't know how to feel about it either. It's a slippery slope.
It is a slippery slope because just let the man rest.
Like, are they just gonna shove CG Stan Lee into Marvel movies now?
Yeah, like is that? I don't think that's what we needed.
Anytime they've done this with like CG characters, it's usually kind of weird.
Yeah, but it's Stan Lee. It's not like a character that passed away or like an old. It's Stan Lee.
Remember CGI Tarkin from Rogue One?
CGI Carrie Fisher from Rogue One. Yeah, it was a problem.
Yeah, so I don't know. Hopefully they do something with it that doesn't involve just shoehorning a CGI Stan Lee into Marvel movies, because we've released several of these movies now without a Stan Lee cameo, and it's been fine.
Yeah.
You know, like they were great when they lasted. It was a great bit of homage and respect to Stan Lee, but it's not like a necessity to put him in these movies. So I don't know. We'll see. And then the last bit of news I just have here, Daredevil, it's on, son.
You guys can't see it, but I'm throwing my fist in the air out of excitement.
It's on, son. So Daredevil has, I guess, officially been greenlit at Disney Plus. Presumably Charlie Cox will return.
No, it's going to be Ben Affleck. We're running it back.
Presumably Vincent D'Onofrio will also be returning. They have not officially said that. They said that it's going to be sort of a continuation of the Netflix series.
It's going to be a soft reboot. Somebody made a good point. Like it was like a joke I saw today that somebody's like, they did a soft reboot on Thor, but nobody noticed. Like from Thor: The Dark World to Thor: Ragnarok. Like it's been completely like, I think it could be something, akin to that. Yeah. I mean, we've seen Disney Plus get dark, and that was really the question. Like, can't Disney Plus go dark and gritty to like where the Netflix show stood? Yeah, I think they can get there.
Just without like the hyper violence stuff.
Right. I think the comp to having the hyper violence is the fact that it's now going to be confirmed taking place in the MCU and what that comes with, and it's going to be a little bit lighter. They're just going to be lighter. Sorry. Yeah.
At the end of the day, that's what it is. But...
Yeah. And not every Daredevil story is super dark. Like it's just not the way some of these characters go. Like not every Moon Knight story is incredibly dark.
No, I mean Moon Knight honestly has some really quirky, goofy moments.
Yeah, he does.
In comics.
Every character does, but every character has the opposite. Most characters do have a super dark story to tell and like that they live through. So I think it's going to work. Like I think we're going to get like more cherry red suit Daredevil stuff. And like I think it's going to be pretty cool. Like Elektra's is she alive or did she die at the end of the Defenders?
She died again.
She could be brought back. Get Elektra back because I think Elektra's too central. Also, I didn't like it at the time, the season 3 stinger with Bullseye, where he just does, he has like his eye light, like have the Bullseye in it. But I mean, now you have Bullseye back. He can come back if this is going to be a softer reboot, which means the character's going to come back. Obviously, you have Vincent D'Onofrio back, which I think he's going to be a bigger MCU villain than just, Kingpin to Daredevil. Like, I think it's going to get a little bit more broad. I just think this opens so many doors. Like we said earlier, like I think he showed like just how Black Widow is in Captain America: Winter Soldier. Like I think Daredevil could show up in Spider-Man, whatever the Spider-Man 4 is. Like I think that's the extent of this. Like I do think that Charlie Cox is going to be in She-Hulk. I don't think he's going to suit up or anything. I just think it's going to be I think it's just going to be him.
Look, here's the deal with Daredevil. The reason, if you want to map out, right, and list the list of reasons why Daredevil is as good as it is, that gritty, like violence stuff probably isn't even in the top 5 of what makes that show successful. What makes that show successful is A, the writing, B, the acting.
Mm-hmm. Oh, Charlie Cox is a godsend in my opinion. Like, it's some of the best acting I've seen. And he wasn't an unknown, but he wasn't like some A-list actor that was out there. Like, that's such a good get for them. But the number one thing that he understood, to your point about like the importance of these things, is like he really embodied the nuances of the character, but more important, he made them his own too. It wasn't like a direct rip from the page, but it did certainly feel like it. But he had these little nuances that were just so great and so likened to him, where he's like I said, like that pedestal of characters, like it's Tony Stark, it's Captain America. In my opinion, Charlie Cox is right there with him as like the characters that have really been embodied from the page.
Yeah, he's gonna nail it.
So
everyone relax.
Yeah.
It's gonna be fun.
We're gonna get Foggy back, we're gonna get Karen back. Like, we're gonna get all the characters you love back.
It's probably gonna be really good.
Yeah. And like I said, it's like that MCU flavor, it's finally going to be added into that on top of that too. I think that's going to be pretty cool for some, like, because I did start rewatching Daredevil. So shout out Rob. He got me a Nelson and Murdoch poster. I'm not even gonna lie, it was because we had the collab and I needed something in the background, but also it was because Daredevil came back. I put that in the back. I put that on my wall, the poster, and then I started rewatching Daredevil. And I started reading a little bit of Daredevil, and I'm like, we were never gonna get that cherry red suit on Netflix. We might get that suit on Disney Plus. I'll tell you that much. Like, all the crazy hand stuff that goes on, like, we're gonna get it. And I think the rest of the Marvel Netflix heroes are gonna follow right after him. Listen,
you're right.
Listen to me, Disney. Heroes for hire. Have a heroes for hire. Don't leave Finn, whatever his name is.
Jones?
Finn Jones. Don't leave Finn Jones out to dry by himself.
Don't make me come to your office, Disney.
Yeah. We're gonna walk right by John Watts, who just walks into this Disney office or into the Star Wars office. But yeah, I think get Finn Jones and Mike Coulter together, have them, because it was the best thing out of both.
We've talked about it ad nauseum. Yeah, out
of Luke Cage season 1.5, like the second half into the second season, that just didn't work. And Iron Fist is Iron Fist. What was the one thing that worked that whole time besides Bushmaster? Because you'll talk about Bushmaster for a little bit. It was the Heroes for Hire episode. It just worked. Just put on Wu-Tang and have them fight for a little bit. It's great.
Yep. Call up Kristen Ritter.
Yeah,
Jessica Jones back.
I think Kristen Ritter might work best with She-Hulk. Like, she could be like a cool, like, like a cool counter to She-Hulk, because if
I just want to see Jessica Jones interacting with all these other MCU characters and her just being like, oh my god. Why do you guys want to be heroes so bad?
This is so stupid.
It
sucks. And I always get roped into this. I can't get out of this.
I think she'd be great.
I think she would be amazing. Who else do you got? And then obviously the Punisher. They're gonna bring John Bernthal back. There's absolutely no way John Bernthal doesn't come back to play the Punisher at some capacity.
Yeah. Why? Yeah, the guy has money.
Yeah. I do think that the best option for him, if you wanted a little bit darker, it's probably to have him with the rest of the Midnight Suns, because obviously it would be great, because you have like Black Knight, you have Blade, and you're gonna have Werewolf by Night, and then it's just Punisher with no powers being like, I got heaps of guns, I got loads of guns. Just
I told you when we talked about that Civil War comic, that's one of my favorite parts of the whole comic, is when he just shoots those two guys and he goes, what?
Yeah.
He goes, what? The Captain America beats the brakes off.
Yeah, he does. Oh my gosh. Look at, man, Captain America's so high and mighty for his own good.
And then they're like, man, what the, why? And then Punisher like doesn't fight back. He's like, I'm not fighting you, Captain America. Like, you're not a killer. And they're like, why wouldn't he hit Captain America? And they're like, well, they're kind of the same person. Like, Vietnam, like, he was probably inspired by him. And then Captain America's like, no, Frank Castle's a lunatic. I'd like to see the Punisher in the MCU, because all these other Marvel characters are so like kind of like heroic, and then enter the Punisher, who just kills people indiscriminately. Imagine
if they did wait for Civil War a little bit, like you said. Oh my, like, because we could have gotten all these beats. Like, if they didn't do if they waited on Infinity War Endgame until after all these characters were introduced, would have been really interesting.
But they didn't have that kind of time.
No, they didn't. They had to get Tony Stark or Robert Downey Jr. was taking way too much money. They said, we got to kill this man ASAP. Taking half our budget from this movie.
All right. So that being said, let's hop in our DeLorean and go back in time a bit.
Going back in time.
Perfect.
Leave that in.
I'm leaving it in.
Leave that in.
It always stays in. So yeah, the 80s. What a time.
What a time.
I wouldn't know. I wasn't alive yet.
I was mucking around the 80s.
I don't know about that.
Me and Maverick, we're chilling at the base.
So yeah, like I mentioned up top, off with the Top Gun Maverick approaching theaters and people presumably watching the original Top Gun.
Like I did.
Yeah. So we decided we're going to give out some awards, you know, but the 80s were obviously a transformational era.
For all media.
Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah.
Music, movies, TV shows, gaming, like everything. Like the 80s is so, like you don't get so much of like the world kind of evolved in the 80s. So pop culture, that's really when pop culture took its like, it knew what it was, and it took, because it was like the visual media really started taking off. So yeah.
So where do you want to start with this?
So basically, I don't know if you believe in a higher power or whatever, or like fate or destiny, but like I had this vague idea of like, we're talking about Top Gun, because I was just like, let's just review Top Gun original recipe Top Gun. And then something happened, and I looked on my TV, I was in my room, and Fast Times at Ridgemont High came on. Shout out Sean Penn. So yeah. That was on, and I was like, and then The Breakfast Club came on, and I was just, because it was like the end of Ridgemont High, and then The Breakfast Club came on, and I was watching, I was just like, man, the 80s, it just had it. It had it. It had the stars, it had everything. And I was like, what if we just talk about the 80s? Because I love the 80s movies. There's so many movies I watched when I was a kid from my dad that I was just like, yeah, I love the 80s. So here we are. New award show alert.
Award show alert.
So the 80s Movies Awards. Looking at the best of pop culture from the 80s.
Best of movies from the 80s. So
throw one at me. So basically what we did, same thing as the Project Infinite Awards that we'll do again at the beginning of next year, where we talk about everything. We're just talking about our favorite 80s movies, and we've got some, like, same thing. We've got some real categories, and we've got some fun categories.
Yeah, so I would say let's do the most 80s thing of all time, because when people think 80s movies, they think montages.
Yeah.
Baby.
You gotta have them.
So what, in your opinion, what's your favorite 80s movie montage?
Man, it's gotta be The Breakfast Club, dancing around the library.
It's a great one.
Just nothing, not a lot beats it. I mean, you want to talk about like a good group of people, just all their personalities bouncing off each other, finally culminates into a great montage, in my opinion. One of my favorite sequences in a movie. It's so stupid, but it works. It works.
Yeah. I mean, we're going to talk probably quite a bit about The Breakfast Club throughout this award show, I guess. That's a great one. Like, what are the beats, right, of a classic 80s montage?
Need some music.
Need some good music. Check. You need you know, your protagonist or protagonists kind of coming together or coming into their own, depending on the film. And then, you know, you need that stigma of like euphoria within like the audience. Like,
it's always got to be in the second act. That's
get
just
an
the way it
audience
goes.
to ramp up.
Yep.
So that's a good one. Mine, I mean, one of the franchises that the founding father of montages. So I'm going Rocky 3 here.
Oh yeah.
Eye of the Tiger, just classic. I mean, who doesn't know that song? Who hasn't imagined their own montage to Eye of the Tiger? Yeah. So Rocky, after he gets the brakes beat off him by Clubber Lang, shout out Mr. T. Gets back. You know, he's down on his luck, and then Apollo Creed is like, "Hey man, how about you buck up a bit, Rock? Let's go." Cue just a classic Rocky training montage. Maybe the classic.
Yeah, used at every sporting event when I was a kid. Like it just turned into like this, you know, this voice of so many people that are trying to, you know, just stay focused and achieve a goal.
In the gym, you know, sparring back and forth, the running on the beach, you know. It's a montage so good they use it again in Rocky 4 after Apollo dies, and Rocky has the montage of the montage where he's remembering that. So that's the one for me is Rocky, because that when you talk about audience anticipation, like you haven't seen Rocky at that sort of a low in the movies this far. It's right off of Mick dying. You know, he has the heart attack and passes away after the first Clubber Lang fight. Right. We see him really get beat for like the first time in this franchise because he lost to Apollo Creed, but it was like a close fight. Then he beats him in the second movie, but this is the first time we've seen Rocky just get absolutely pummeled. So I love that montage so much. It's the best.
That's good stuff. It's good stuff. You want to do a real category?
How dare you say the montage wasn't a real category?
I mean, we can follow up the montage. I mean, one of the big components too, because we now we have this equation to what equals a good montage. So you need a song in there. So what's your favorite original song from the 80s?
So, all right. So Top Gun Maverick is obviously coming out.
Yeah.
It's Danger Zone,
Yeah.
man. That
I can't blame you.
That song is like, we talk about a song for a movie. I think the song needs to embody the film.
Mm-hmm. That's the same logic I use for mine.
Yeah, right down to not just the lyrics, but just the chords and the beats to it. And that's what Danger Zone is for Top Gun. It's fast paced. Mm-hmm. It's metal. It's 80s. It's like, it's cool. You know what I mean? It's sleek. It's like this sleek kind of song, if that makes sense. And it's just perfect for that film, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. And I don't think it would be a surprise if they use it in the new one, because why wouldn't you? Mm-hmm. So that's it for me. Danger Zone is just like, it's iconic.
No, it's good. It's good stuff.
Even the title perfectly just that.
Yeah.
It just gets
It's the beginning. Yeah. It's that hard guitar riff in the beginning. It's good stuff, man. So keeping on this Breakfast Club train, I got Don't You by Simple Minds. And again, embodying what your movie is, just the whole thing of You Can't Forget About Me, like, and just encompassing like all these. The best part about the Breakfast Club, obviously, is all these different perspectives, realizing they're not too different from each other. Sitting in this room, finally having like this common thing that they're about, and kind of the note that he leaves for the teacher at the end. Same concept, like we're more than just an athlete, like a weirdo, like a jock, like we're like the valley girl, like we're so much more than that. And I think this song kind of encompasses that whole thing, and just coupled by the fist in the air at the end, the freeze frame, like classic 80s freeze frame, like you can't you can't.
You should have put that in as a category.
And it's like a soft song that just really encompasses it feels youthful too, like it feels like something that gives you a little bit of hope, if that makes sense.
Favorite 80s freeze frame is what we should have done.
Yeah.
Honorable mention to the legend Prince also. I mean, Purple Rain, not just as far as like a movie score goes, but like an actual like music, like soundtrack.
Right.
I mean, Prince is one of the greatest musicians who's ever lived. So, I don't want to discount what Prince was able to do with Purple Rain, because it's iconic.
Agreed.
What else do you want to hit here?
That was a real one. We should have a little bit more fun again.
You want to do...
What's your favorite action movie from the 80s?
Favorite action movie?
Mm-hmm.
Die Hard, man.
Die Hard. It's good. That's good.
We talked about the 80s being kind of the forefather for a lot of modern kind of things. Mm. Die Hard was that for the everyman action film that had become so popular through the 90s, through the 2000s. John McClane was such a departure from the Stallones and the Schwarzeneggers of the world. He was just every man who just he had this, like, it's funny to even say this with Stallone in the category, but like he had this like blue collar nature to him. I don't know how to explain it, but it's just like, that's what it is.
Because Stallone started getting larger than life, because Arnold was always he was physically and like metaphorically larger than life, but Stallone went from like 77 Rocky, like this like just this tough gritty guy from Philly that just kind of turned into this this hard-nosed boxer. But then Rocky 3 and 4 happened, and like, I mean, Rocky 4 starts off with like a robot that like delivers them, like it gets crazy. But like you said, John McClane kind of gives that like blue collar, like everyday feel to an action day hero that I really
smoking cigarettes.
Yeah,
he's in a wife beater, tank top, just like, and he's just like, oh my god,
it's a little bit more relatable.
Like, this sucks. Like, if you were in an action movie, that's what you would think. Like, this sucks. Like, I hate this.
Like, he's crawling through the ducts, and it's just like, I probably want to be crawling, like,
Yeah, like we talked about with when Hawkeye came out, that there was a lot of diehard isms in Hawkeye, of the guy who just wants to be done. He just wants to go home. Bruce Willis, this was one of his his big break standout performance was as John McClane. And I just love Die Hard so much, because it's, like I said, in a category where you have your Rambos and you have your Terminators and Alien, and you know,
Indies and your Luke Skywalkers.
There's just regular old
John
McClane. And that's why I love Die Hard so much. And that's why it's my favorite 80s action movie.
I got roped in.
The Breakfast Club.
No, yep, it's the greatest action movie. I got roped in, man. I put Top Gun. I got roped in. I watched, because it hit me when I was watching. I hadn't seen the original Top Gun since I was like a child, like an actual small child. So about 7 months ago, I watched this Top Gun movie, but I watched it like 2 days ago. Man, it works. It's a movie that has all these stupid tropes. Like, who cares about these guys playing volleyball in the middle of the movie? But like, it just everything works as like an overly dramatic, cheesy 80s action movie. But what kind of grounds it is like these little moments of like, Maverick talking about, the music that he used to listen to with his mom. But like, it still prefaces that with some really good action sequences with them. It was a first big exposure on the big screen of like dogfighting in air, like what it could feel like. Like, it's a good example of what it could feel like to be a fighter pilot. Like, still keeping that action hero trope for Maverick, but still keeping in like, this could feel like this is what this is like this crazy thing that you can't do. Like, here's a look inside what this could be. Yeah,
Maverick's a great case of, he's not like the comical kind of hero level of like Rambo, who's like just a lunatic, and he feels way larger than life. Like, Maverick feels like
he's the heartthrob of like, he's like a heartthrob. He's like
but he also feels like kind of a real person,
right?
Like, just like, but like the best of what that type of person is,
right?
Like, imagine the best person that at their job, right? Like, it feels like that person could exist,
right? And
he's not quite as relatable as like John McClane,
right?
But like, he's perfect in that middle ground.
And then Goose kind of adds like that levity to it as well. Like, Goose is like a good entry level for the audience, as well as like, if you can't be Mavericks, a lot of you guys are probably Goose. Like, it's just and they're just this amazing duo in themselves as well. So yeah,
I guess we can segue right into our duos thing then.
Crap, because I had for the action movies, it's usually defined by a dynamic duo.
Talk about it.
Yeah, I picked I picked Maverick and Goose.
Keep talking about Top Gun.
Man, they bounce off of each. They bounce their mannerisms bounce off of each other. They work as like this best friends that are they're believable best friends too. Because I think what happens a lot of time, it was either the trope of like these two people that don't want to be together. I think I really wanted to pick Back to the Future. I really wanted to pick Marty and Doc, because they're a good example of two people that shouldn't work but do. But like, Maverick and Goose just feel like those like college buddies that are finally in their job, and like now they do have to make some difficult choices that could test their friendship. But Goose never, if you think Goose never lets it get there, man. He's always that thing that kind of brings him back to earth and makes him understand, like, there's more to this, man. Like, you're not just my best friend, you're my brother, and that creates one of the best duos you can ask for.
Yeah, I mean, it's classic. It's you talk about iconic duos, like, that's who it is. You know what I mean? It's like,
they probably had kids in like the 90s running around like, I'm Maverick, you're Goose. Like, that's just how it goes.
And like, just the backdrop of the fighter pilots, and having a wingman, a wingman is like such a common lexicon,
right?
You know what I mean? So it's impossible to escape that dynamic. I went a little bit different with that, so I'm going Meg Ryan and Billy Crystal from When Harry Met Sally, because much like you don't get really a great action film like that without a dynamic duo, you also don't get a great 80s kind of comedy movie without a great dynamic duo. And I mean, man, Meg Ryan, we're going to talk about actresses a little later on. Meg Ryan, classic 80s, 90s rom-com actress. Talk about that movie. You talk about You Got Mail, where she's just absolutely charming alongside Tom Hanks. But I mean, When Harry Met Sally, I mean, who doesn't know the diner scene?
Yeah.
And it's just the two of them together are just absolutely, it's just something there.
And then obviously Billy Crystal against Meg Ryan, like you said, that's like a match made in heaven that you wouldn't think about. No, it's good stuff.
Yeah, Nora Ephron just knows how to write rom-coms. Rob Reiner directed.
Yeah, Rob Reiner, as well as a It's funny, like, if I say that now, like, that Rob Ryan's an underrated director, that not a lot of people would probably agree, but if I say that, like, 15, 20 years ago, people would look at me crazy, like, he's not underrated, like, people know who Rob Ryan is.
Yeah, and it's just a perfect backdrop for letting two actors shine. You know, they meet in Chicago, and then it's just, they go on a road trip. Mm-hmm. And it's a great kind of backdrop for a romantic comedy, mm-hmm. starring just two absolutely electric actors in doing their role.
Yeah. Where do you want to go next? So we have our dynamic duo. I guess we can go. Let's talk about some directors, maybe.
Okay, I can do that.
So, who's your favorite director from the 80s? Who's that defining person? And I think that's the route that we took, is more over, like, because if we really want to get into it, I mean, I think we know who the best director, Spike was working in the 80s, Martin Scorsese was working in the 80s, but I think there's two people that I think are, like, they're genre defining, and they're really, like, movie defining directors, like, and they kind of give a voice to people.
Yeah. So I'm not gonna drum up any controversy here. I'm gonna pick Steven Spielberg.
It's easy. It's not easy, but it's a great pick. It's like, it was so tough when we were picking, like, our favorite movie. Like, in my opinion, like, that was a tough one. And I think this is another tough one, because there's so many great people working, and, like, making these tropes, like, it needs to come from somewhere, and writer director is usually where it comes from. So
yeah, I mean, you know, you ask yourself, why is, you know, people in the future will be like, whoa, what's the big deal about Steven Spielberg, right? You know, why was he a big deal? If aliens crash landed, and be like, who's Steven Spielberg? You just kind of just show them his 80s filmography, mm-hmm. and then show them the movies, mm-hmm. and they'll get it, because he started with Raiders of the Lost Ark in 1981.
What a way to start.
Followed that up with E.T., one of the most iconic science fiction movies ever. Mm-hmm. Twilight Zone, again, iconic science fiction. Followed up with another Indiana Jones film, and then he moved to The Color Purple, mm-hmm. which is just iconic.
And it shows his range too. I think that's super important for any great director, is to show a little bit of range.
Yep. And then finished it off with another Indiana Jones movie. Mm-hmm. So he put together 3 Indiana Jones films within 1 decade, which is pretty spectacular. He's obviously one of the most, maybe the most revered director of all time.
And I think more importantly, producers of all time. Like, his mark on Hollywood is just, Hollywood's not the same without, there's like a handful of people you can do that to, and Steven Spielberg is 1,000,000% there.
A bunch of them exist in this decade. I'm not spoiling anything by saying we'll probably talk about George Lucas a little bit later. So yeah, I mean, we're not here to talk about what he did before and after the 80s, but I mean, you have Jaws in 1975, and then in the 90s, you got Jurassic Park, Schindler's List, Saving Private Ryan. Jeez. I mean, and you know, that just shows.
Then he went into the 2000s and he made, like, Catch Me If You Can. Like, he just never stopped.
Right. Yeah.
And then he gets to, like, 2021 and he has West Side Story. Like, he's just one of the greatest of all time. Like, I think I talked about the Mount Rushmore filmmakers. Like, in my opinion, he needs to be on that list. Like, it doesn't matter if you think, like, you know, or if you think, you know, Scorsese's better, Tarantino, or, you know, Alfred Hitchcock. Like, Spielberg's mark on the film industry itself is why he deserves to be on that list, in my opinion.
Yep.
Yeah.
So who you got? I know who you got. But
tell the people. Tell the people. Well, I'm giving it to the person that I think had the biggest mark on the teenage of the 80s, and that's John Hughes. I mean, John Hughes understood youth in the 80s, and he understood these teenagers going through this transformative age, and now they had all this media around them, and I think he really encapsulated that. I mean, he was active. I mean, he made in my opinion, 2 of the greatest teen movies of all time, with Breakfast Club and Ferris Bueller's Day Off. And just these, like, it's always these, like, ragtag. There's something that he does that I really enjoy. There's a lot of moments, there's a lot of quieter, softer moments that he always captures, where you just have no choice but to think about what, like, you're just throwing into, like, what these kids could be thinking about. And, like, this huge world just kind of gets really just shrunken down into just the now. And I think there's so many tropes of teen movies that come from John Hughes, and, like, he just, like I said, he just understood the voice of the teen nation at the time.
Yeah, and what And, you know, it's funny that you say at the time, because I think there's a timelessness to all those movies, you know. You would think that a movie set in the 70s and 80s about kids from the 70s and 80s wouldn't exactly be relatable to people now, but go back and watch the Breakfast Club.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I remember, like, it's so funny, like, people my age, it's like, they always remember the first time they saw The Breakfast Club or Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Like you said, there's these movies that don't have time that define them. It's just what happens in those movies, and those characters themselves so many people relate to, because what he does is he has a good range of these characters, and I mean, Breakfast Club's the perfect example of that, of understanding, like, there's these different people, but we're not so different.
Yeah, I mean, The Breakfast Club builds kind of a lot of the archetypes of teen characters that you see even now. You know, I think, you know, the young adult films, you know, the contemporary ones, not counting the science fiction, I think they have become a little more nuanced as time has gone on. Like, we've kind of moved away a little bit from those kind of tropes of The Breakfast Club, but those are the building blocks, you know what I mean? You have your jock character, you have your nerd character, you have the conservative, you know, kind of person character, you have the bully character that kind of doesn't get along with everybody but then does. You know, you see all that stuff over and over again, and it's derived from The Breakfast Club, from these John Hughes movies.
So he's just somebody that I definitely, when I was on my first, you know, trek to looking at these filmmakers, he's definitely somebody that hit the short list very quick. And I started running through all the movies that he did, and it's just somebody that I just enjoyed watching what they were doing, especially, like I said, through Ferris Bueller's Day Off, but most importantly for myself, it's through Breakfast Club.
What haven't we touched yet? I'm trying to cross these off as we do them. I guess we can go to, I mean, do you want to talk about teen movie now?
Yeah,
since we're here.
I keep doing it because I keep crossing off the same categories with one movie. I did it again.
Top Gun.
No, it's not Top Gun. It's not Top Gun. It's The Breakfast Club. It's the
trifecta.
It's the quintessential teen movie of the 80s. It's undeniable in talking about that. Like I said, you're hitting so many tropes of all these different characters and these archetypes for, like you just said, the bully, the athlete, the valley girl.
On you a little bit.
No, yeah. Favorite teen movie is Star Wars, because Luke Skywalker is a child for most of those movies. But yeah, like I said, Breakfast Club, it is the archetype teen movie. And my favorite part about it is it breaks so many of those tropes, and obviously they're going to have to come together at some point, but it's such a, that movie's got a little bit of rawness to it that you wouldn't expect. Like, it takes that whole thing and then it gets to the finish line and it says, you know what? We're going to act a little bit differently here.
It's so good in that, you know, you talk about the 80s and the dynamism of that decade. Like, The Breakfast Club, in terms of, like, the plot is so low stakes. Even compared to, like, the other teen movies, it's pretty low stakes.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to compare it to Ferris Bueller's Day Off, like, the stakes are astronomically different. And it's funny because Ferris kind of makes the situation for them, but it's just these kids sitting in detention. Like, how do you find... You have to find something for people to watch. Like, you have to keep the audience engaged, and I think the best thing that he does is say, hey, somebody's going to relate to at least one of these characters and going to root for one of them, but if I can get them to root for them as a collective, then we did something right. And
then I kind of went the opposite way in terms of stakes. The Outsiders.
Yeah.
Is where I went with my favorite teen movie, because it's, you know, talk about raw. What more raw is there than 1965 greaser, you know, gangs? You know what I mean? And that's what this movie is, in terms of, like, the bad boys. That's what this movie's about, but also making an audience care about them, you know? And I mean, the cast is
absolutely insane for that movie.
When you look at who these people would become, you know, Matt Dillon, Ralph Macchio, who we're probably going to talk about a little bit.
I know I am.
Patrick Swayze, Rob Lowe, Emilio Estevez, Diane Lane, and one name that I intentionally skipped over, but Tom Cruise.
Yeah. Yeah, the cast for that movie is insane. Like, you know it's another cast that I just randomly thought about that just blew up after the fact? It's Freaks and Geeks. Just absolutely nuclear cast after the fact.
Yeah, this is just, and talk about raw. I mean, people are getting killed. People are, you know, giving up their own lives. You know, it's dark. It's a dark movie, you know, and that's a weird thing to say about, you know, a teen movie, especially at the time. But I think it's an important, you know, spectrum, right? You got like The Breakfast Club, which is like relatively low stakes, but also has relatable characters. But then like you have The Outsiders, which also has relatable characters, but the stakes are way up here, you know, and you know, Francis Ford Coppola, who we've talked about in the past, you know, just an incredible director in his own right. Definitely deserves recognition for when we talked about directing earlier. This movie, you know, again, lays the foundation for a lot of things that come after it.
Right. Agreed. So yeah, it's good stuff. I love The Breakfast Club, man.
I know. You don't have Breakfast Club for a favorite nostalgic moment, do you?
Nope. Thank God. I had to check real quick because I thought I did. But
all right, let's talk about that then, because this is every 80s movie needs that like iconic moment, that moment of euphoria for the audience or you know, for the characters or whatever the case is. So, what is your best nostalgic moment?
Well, here's the logic I use, right? So nostalgia comes with you need to look from the past you need to look from the future to get to the past. So you know what moment I picked? I picked the moment that started this show called Cobra Kai that everybody loves nowadays, and it's when Danny knocks out Johnny. I just remember that moment vividly when I watched that movie when I was a kid, because I think what had happened is like I think I saw the Jaden Smith Karate Kid, and then I went back because I was a kid, and me and Jaden Smith are the same age, so I went back and I watched it, and then I watched I watched 1984 Karate Kid, and I was like, oh, this is absolutely amazing. Like, thank God for summer vacation where you just have time to watch all these movies. So, no, it was so good. And I mean, it's one of the best examples of the hero doing the hero thing. Like, the hero finally overcoming the antagonist. Like,
and then you watch Cobra Kai and you're like,
Ralph Macchio, the villain, question mark? It was the basis of like an entire season of How I Met Your Mother.
Was it an illegal kick? Maybe.
I guess we'll never know. But yeah, I mean, like I said, the whole logic is like it started an entire new piece of this franchise, and like you know, reignited the love for this. And you don't get that without the kick, because without that kick, you don't see Johnny's perspective of the entire thing. So yeah, thank God for 5 seasons of Cobra Kai we're about to get. Just off of one kid that had to move to California.
YouTube TV's best success story.
Or best, you know, is it not a success because they gave it up and then it blew
not a success
up?
For them.
No, yeah. Netflix, get back to what you're doing. Release another season of Cobra Kai quickly. You guys are falling. Play the hits.
So for me, I'm going to stick to the combat film range. And so I remember, I told you this before we hopped on. It was July 4th. Or I guess technically July 5th. It was like 1 a.m. and AMC was showing Rocky IV. And I was just
one of the most American movies of all time. What's the American movie like hierarchy?
Because
it's like Rocky IV. Like, what else is a super American movie?
Pearl Harbor.
Pearl Harbor's that's a good one.
Pearl Harbor's so American that they made up like the last half of the movie, the last like quarter of the movie.
Independence Day.
Like Pearl Harbor is like historical fiction in the sense that like Michael Bay was like, yeah, what if Pearl Harbor, but what if we won at the end? And they're like, what? What? So Rocky IV was on. I caught it like halfway through. Apollo had been killed. Not murdered, but I mean, I guess it was he was murdered because Drago didn't seem to feel too bad. He wasn't too broken up about it. So we're getting ready, big fight. Big montage, of course. And then we get to the fight. And man, I watched that Rocky Drago fight like I was there. And then the 15th round comes in. There's absolutely
15th.
There's absolutely no defense on either side.
It's a Warriors game.
These guys are just trading leather back and forth. And then Rocky knocks Drago out in the 15th round. And I jumped up out of my seat like I was there. And that is just amazing.
No, it's the same thing for me when I watched that movie when I was a kid. You're feeling something, and that's a mark of it. It necessarily doesn't need to be like the greatest movie ever, but it's a mark of a movie that has a little bit of, you know, stake in keeping the audience. Like if you have this generation that has no ties to the 80s, like on the edge of their seat, wanting to see the action hero win, like it does it perfectly.
Yeah. And man, Drago is the perfect foil for Rocky. Like, he's this cold, calculated Russian killing machine, and Rocky's like the everyman. And then, you know, they have the cheesy, like, the crowd starts cheering for Rocky, even though it's in Soviet Russia.
Right.
They're like, and he cuts him, and it's, you know, Duke is there, you know, cornering Rocky, and he's like, he's not a machine, he's a man. And you're like, come on, Rocky, and then boom! He's like, you gotta knock him out, Rocky, you gotta knock him out in this round. And then he hits him, and Drago does, like, the pirouette. He, like, falls to the canvas.
Hey, you can use my logic on the nostalgic moment, because they got Creed 2 out of this moment.
They did.
They did.
And that's the thing people always wanted. They're like, we want to see friggin' Dolph Lundgren come back as Ivan Drago.
And he did.
And he did.
He did.
Oh,
He was also an Arrow.
He is. God, it's so good. Rocky drapes himself in the American flag. Oh man, that's so good. We're getting to the big ones now.
Yeah.
Let's do best score, rounding out the music categories.
What do you got?
It's John Williams, man.
It's so tough to contest that too. It's incredibly
It's
tough.
Star Wars. So obviously you get both Empire and Return of the Jedi in the scope of the 80s. And I mean, just ask yourself, do you know Star Wars? If yes, then you've heard John Williams' score, because every bit of it is great.
Doesn't the main Empire theme come in Empire? Like, that's the debut of one of the Imperial, like one of the most iconic themes to ever touch any piece of media ever.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you have the opening crawl, which is iconic.
I think probably the most iconic theme of any movie of all time. I can't think of anything that touches that.
And then even, you know, the lighter moments when you have, you know, even scene set in Cloud City in Empire, like those scores are what he does, which a lot of movie scores I feel like nowadays don't do, is they work hand in hand with the scene that you're seeing.
Right.
That's what Star Wars does. That's what he does with the Star Wars scores, is his score accentuates every scene, you know, that you hear. Which I think is amazing.
That's good. Talking about, and it's funny because I just listened to the score front to back to make sure that I had this in my mind. Everybody's favorite from these New Age Avengers movies, Alan Silvestri. Man's been working for a little bit, and he worked on this little score from 1985 called Back to the Future, and it's my favorite score from the 80s. I mean, talk about working hand in hand with the narrative too. He does such a great job, and it's the smaller moments he does such a great job. He uses a lot of harps and a lot of like pianos, like in those smaller moments that kind of keep you engaged with what Marty's feeling at the time as well. And it's the perfect example of a ramp up into the main action sequence. I think he does incredibly well. So Alan Silvestri, thank you for creating this incredible score. And man, he's one of the greats. He's one of the greats.
Yeah, agreed. Also, you know, both composers, John Williams and Alan Silvestri, are part of the modern kind of zeitgeist. John Williams scored one last bit for the Obi-Wan show that's coming up, and Alan Silvestri, as you noted, the Avengers theme. Talk about iconic scores.
Jeez, yeah, probably one of the most iconic modern day scores. Yeah.
So I'm gonna save these big, 1, 2, 3, 4 for last. So I'm gonna jump into our favorite ragtag group.
Oh no!
Just say it.
It's the Breakfast Club, man. And I think it's because they're so different from each other. I think that's what makes a good ragtag group should have different members. They should not all feel like the same. And I think that's a good mark of a ragtag team. They all got different personalities, but they all have essentially, you know, a pretty common goal that they don't know about until it gets there. Yeah.
Mine is same vein, you know, different movement. The Ghostbusters.
Yeah, man.
You talk about people, you know, similar leaves of the same tree. You got Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, Harold Ramis, Rick Moranis, Ernie Hudson, just an iconic quintet of Ghostbusters. Sigourney Weaver also obviously is mixed in, kind of, she's part of the crew.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, talk about iconic groupings. I mean, the Ghostbusters is who didn't think of themselves as the Ghostbusters back, you know, in the late 80s into the early 90s, like that. And, you know, that kind of love and attention for that group was kind of memorialized in this past in Ghostbusters Afterlife.
Yeah, it does a good job. Did a good job
when they come back, and obviously Harold Ramis makes a posthumous kind of cameo in Ghostbusters Afterlife. Also, Rick Moranis, unfortunately,
right.
Stepped away from acting to take care of his family, but that group is. Again, the word iconic is probably going to be thrown around a lot in this episode, and probably has been already, but that's because, we talked about up top how transformational this period of filmmaking was. It set this tone for a lot of things that you see, in the 90s and the 2000s, even to today. There's a reason why movies like Ghostbusters Afterlife are being made. Movies like Top Gun Maverick are being made.
Shows like Cobra Kai are being made, yeah.
Yeah, it's because... the foundation was built in this era. What else we got? Oh, villain. Favorite villain.
Who do you got?
I'm gonna take a step away from acting performances and actor performances. The Xenomorph.
There's a guy in the suit.
There's a guy in the suit.
Yeah, there's a guy in the suit.
The creature is just the stuff of nightmares.
Yes. Nothing beats when Sigourney Weaver, when it's kind of breathing on Sigourney Weaver when she's got the shit. It's great. It's greatness personified, man. Again,
just a cornerstone of modern day, for modern day thriller, horror, action, whatever you want to call it. That creature corner of drama and of thrillers. The Xenomorph is the standard for that. It's one of the sickest designed creatures of all time.
And really the backbone for a lot of different designs on modern day creatures as well.
Even when you look ahead to when you look at video games, even Resident Evil and video games like Silent Hill, they're all, the creature designs in those games and later movies are all trying to chase the Xenomorph as far as design. And, it's no secret, it's no surprise that the Xenomorph found its way into rivaling the Predator, because the Predator also around at this time. Also a very good candidate for this category.
Yeah.
Those are kind of the two kind of creatures that were both from the 80s, but also stand the test of time. So it's the Xenomorph for me.
So I took a little bit more of the approach of, it's funny, it's still a human that played them, but a little bit more, robotic, for lack of a better term. So I picked the Terminator. I picked Arnold Schwarzenegger as the Terminator.
Tremendous.
It's the best villain of the 80s. I mean, the first Terminator movie has 100% on Rotten Tomatoes, certified fresh. And we all know that trope. Your movie's only as good as your villain. So, I mean, the best thing about him, it's the walk. That walk is just because there's no escape. There's just no escape once it comes after you. It's sentient. Its knowledge base is great. Comes back from 2029 to 1984, and it's ready. It's ready. It's ready to take. It's ready.
Yeah, it's equal parts action hero, killing machine, but also equal parts Jason Voorhees.
Yeah, no, because it's this big hulking figure that it's not running at you, it's just walking at you a lot of the time.
And in some ways, he's almost scarier than a Jason.
Because he's learning too as he's going as well.
He's learning, and he's not this faceless being. Jason has the hockey mask on.
Right.
Freddy Krueger's kind of this deformed guy. The Xenomorph and the Predator, obviously extraterrestrials. But the Terminator just looks like a guy.
Right.
Just this hulking Austrian man.
Right. No, and it works every step of the way. And what's great about it? It leads into one of the greatest early twists in Terminator 2. I talked about Fallout being one of the best movies. My favorite action movie of all time is probably Terminator 2 Judgment Day. Dang it, I wish it came out in 89 instead of 92 just so I can talk about Linda Hamilton. That's probably because she probably would have been my favorite actress. But it's the simple fact is when he finds out and he goes and he tells him to get down and he shoots the T-1000. It's just oh shoot, he's on our side this time.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Yeah.
It's so good. But that's 1992, not 1980s.
We'll have time to talk about that in the 90s episode that we do.
We gotta find somewhere to put it.
And then favorite action hero. So I'm gonna jump back to Die Hard.
For this. You gotta go first because I have some explaining to do for mine.
Because John McClane, man, I don't want to spend too much time on it because I kind of talked about it when I talked about Die Hard a little bit ago. Just the everyman action hero, man. Obviously, as those films went on, he became less and less of the everyman, became kind of more of the trope that he started. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's just, he's just a middle-aged, mid to late 30s, just guy just wrapped up in some stuff. And he goes up, talk about great villains. Alan Rickman, folks. If you have not watched Die Hard, just go back, watch Alan Rickman's Hans Gruber. One of the best action movie villains, one of the best villains, period, in anything. And he's a great foil for John McClane, who just, like I said, just does not want to be there. Mm-hmm. And like I said, he just set the standard for everyday action guy. I could have went a lot of different directions with this. Obviously, Rambo, is 80s action personified.
I almost took Rambo because that's like my dad's favorite action movie, and he's the reason that like I'm into movies the way that I am. So I was real close to taking that, but I had to take a different approach to mine.
Which is
it's Ferris Bueller. He's the greatest action hero of the 80s. He is the definition of anarchy. Like this man or this kid took this day, like he formulated the craziest day a teenager could have into one film. Like, just think about the things they were doing in that one day. Like, that's an action movie. Like, I don't care what anybody tells you. Ferris Bueller's Day Off is an action movie. It's a chase movie. It's an action movie. There's action set pieces in that movie. Like, you can't prove me wrong. And it's him breaking the fourth wall as well on top of that is a great mark of a good action hero too. Like, really putting us in like his perspective on everything. No, it's great. It's a great setup to the world. Like, he's got great booby traps that he sets in his own room to, like, it's got all the action hero tropes. He's got it. It's Ferris Bueller.
Look, man, you're not wrong.
This is my show, and I'm going to do what I want.
Look, I can't say it's a direction I thought you were going, but I'm glad that you went there. So I guess this is kind of like the Oscars, so we're saving these big three for last. So our favorite actor and actress of the 80s.
Did we talk about our favorite underrated movie?
Oh, shoot. I don't think I wrote that one down. I didn't write that one down, but we can talk about that one.
You got anything for me?
No, you go first.
Well, it's a movie I talked about a little bit on here as well. And it's this movie called Paris, Texas that came out in 1984. It's like, this is probably like the first like film on here. You know what I mean? Like, Oh,
I remember what I'm picking for this, and I'm going in a totally different direction than you.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
No, it's a movie it's a beautiful, smaller movie with just I don't even want to say simplistic plot, but like I said, or like I talked about it on another episode, it's basically just this guy that gets like, he kind of is an amnesiac for a little bit, and his brother comes to get him, and he's just walking in the deserts of Texas, and he essentially just wants to go find his wife because he comes back into contact with his young son, and his wife has basically left them, so he's trying to find her. It's a really emotional movie, just this really small movie, just with this great protagonist to follow, this nomadic protagonist that, at the end of the day just puts his family back together. Just really beautiful looking movie.
That's fun. You can have your nice little art film or whatever, but I'm gonna go. So one of my favorite directors, writers of all time, Mel Brooks.
Oh, no.
So Spaceballs.
As soon as you said Mel Brooks, I was like, oh, God, I know where this is going. It's ridiculous, man.
It's so ridiculous, but it goes hand in hand with what... I mean, I'm going to spoil a little bit what my favorite 80s movie is. It goes hand in hand with that. It is obviously a parody of Star Wars. Oh, man. Mick Moranis as Dark Helmet.
Mm-hmm. It's his voice that always kills me with that, too.
It's so ridiculous. It's... Joan Rivers is in this as, like, the lady version of 3PO. Bill Pullman obviously is Luke Skywalker and Han Solo kind of smashed together as Lone Star. Man, if you have not watched Spaceballs, I urge you to. And honestly, just dive into the Mel Brooks filmography just in general.
It's crazy.
One of the most brilliant comedic minds who has ever lived. And Spaceballs kind of sometimes gets lost in the shuffle as like this kind of underground kind of comedy. But yeah, I love that movie so much.
I love it. We definitely did take two different approaches to that.
Yeah, but that's the beauty of what we do. So yeah, back to the acting. The big acting categories.
The acting.
It's like the Oscars.
Will Smith check? Not in sight. We're good.
We're good? Nobody's getting slapped?
Nobody's getting slapped.
Yet. So favorite actor and actress, I guess we'll start with the actress category. What do you got?
I think we have the same one.
We do, right?
Yeah.
Do we have the same both?
We did have the same
All right,
both.
so we might as well just talk about it then.
Yeah, so actress, it's Sigourney Weaver. Own the 80s. And I think I kind of based mine off of I didn't want like a damsel in distress, or I was a second away from picking Molly Ringwald because, man, if you were a teenager in the 80s, you were probably Molly Ringwald. But I think, for lack of a better term, she was a little bit one-dimensional because she usually, like I said, it's a good thing because she really owned the teen girl formative age of the 80s, but at the same time, that's what she was only known for. Sigourney Weaver had a little bit more range in her, and doesn't hurt that she was in Aliens, so
kicking ass.
Oh,
Ellen Ripley,
understatement.
Yeah, Ellen Ripley, one of the standard bearers, one of the four mothers of the female action.
Yeah,
hero.
it's like her. It's probably Angelina Jolie and the Uma Thurman, and I'd probably put Linda. I think I could put Linda Hamilton just off of Terminator 2. I'll put Linda Hamilton.
Yeah, and I mean that reputation has preceded Sigourney Weaver even into modern day, where we see her in Avatar. We see her. Obviously, she popped up in the Marvel Netflix universe as the villain. So yeah, Sigourney Weaver is just tremendous. But however, our unanimous choice for favorite actor of the 80s, Harrison Ford.
Harrison Ford, man.
Boy, what just a decade of dominance.
Yeah, dominance and greatness.
Just helming, being the, obviously Mark Hamill is Luke Skywalker, but you might not get the heights of Star Wars without the charming, charismatic scoundrel that is Han Solo.
I love you. I know. Like, come on.
But that would have been good enough, right? That would have been good enough to warrant him, a spot on this prestigious.
Yeah, and he did
award.
something that a lot of actors do. He was the best friend character, and now he needs his own pedestal to stand on, and that's Indiana Jones.
He picked a hell of a pedestal to stand on.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
So yeah, he does Empire and he does Raiders of the Lost Ark concurrently. One in 1980, one in 1981.
And then 1982 pops up. And then he's Deckard in Blade Runner.
Just, how do you top it? How do you top it?
And then he goes into a fan favorite movie of this channel in the 90s, The Fugitive.
You put that gun down!
I did not
kill my wife.
It's good, man.
He's in Air Force One.
He is in Air Force One. He's the president, for God's sakes.
So yeah, Harris, I mean, what else could you say? He's the best.
He is the best.
No, you just notoriously just is so dismissive of Star Wars.
Oh, yeah.
Only agreed to come back for The Force Awakens if Han Solo was killed, which is just great.
Yeah.
So yeah, but speaking of that, favorite 80s film, the big category.
Yeah, this is it.
So for me, it's not a swerve. It's not a fun pick, but Empire Strikes Back. One of not just my favorite 80s movies, but one of my favorite movies of all time. What really triggered that memory for me was it was on TV the other day before one of the basketball games, and it's incredible. It's incredible.
No, it is.
It has at the time one of the biggest plot twists ever in any movie. Obviously, Vader confronting Luke at the end and being like, "I am your father," and you're like, "What?"
I know people in 1980 were like, what was the line that Chris Evans had in Free Guy when he had the cat?
Oh, you gotta be shitting! What the shit?
Yeah, that's exactly probably what they were like there. That was insane. No, that's a great pick. I mean, I told you, I think I texted you when you told me you were watching Empire. I was like, the flip when when they get captured in Cloud City and Vader's sitting in the chair when they open up the room
and Han shoots at him and Vader just blocks the blaster bolt.
Like, it's so good. That movie's tense. In my opinion, it's the best example of your middle part of the hero journey for Luke, because he needs that. Like, he needs this teacher that's not like, well, we're going to do this by this time. Like, he needs something unconventional at this point because he's been told these, like, things about the Jedi, but Yoda's the one that, and it's retroactively too, because if you look at the rest of the franchise, Yoda wasn't like that before. And then he the events of Revenge of the Sith happened and he changed.
You also have Luke springing into action way sooner than he's ready for. Like, he's like,
it's such a great little writing. It's like such a great thing written into his character. Like, because a lot of the times when you see your action hero, it's just like, oh, I'm ready for this. But like, he was not ready for that moment at all.
And he was like, well, I can't just let my friends die. And
yeah.
Ben Kenobi is there and Yoda is there. Ben as a ghost, and he's like, look, man, if you do this, I can't help you. Like, I'm not going to be able to help you this time. And Luke's like, I have to do something. Like, I'm not going to let my friends die out there.
Right.
And then I love when Luke leaves and Ben goes to Yoda. He's like, well, what happens if he dies? And Yoda's like, don't worry, there's another out there. Mm-hmm. And we're like, ooh, what does that mean?
Who could that be? Find out next week on Star Wars Return of the Jedi.
Yeah, and then obviously, like I said, the ending. Great lightsaber duel.
Yeah.
Between Vader and Luke.
Holds up pretty well.
Holds up really well. It's maybe I think it's my favorite lightsaber duel out of the original trilogy. Mm-hmm. There aren't many, obviously. There's Ben versus Vader, there's Luke versus Vader in Empire, then there's Luke versus Vader in Return of the Jedi. I think the Empire one is probably the best one.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Yeah.
It's good stuff. I picked...
The Breakfast Club.
Nope. You would have thought I would pick It's like the Breakfast Club got Dune for me, because Dune won all the technical awards, but it didn't win the big thing. I picked this little movie from 1985 called Back to the Future. I absolutely adore this movie. Like, I talked about the Breakfast Club a lot. Like, Back to the Future's right there. Like, it was to the point where I had Robert Zemeckis as my favorite director of the 80s just because Back to the Future. I mean, this movie, it's a great hero journey. It throws your protagonist in something that's completely off the rails, which is 1955. Running into his father in this movie, like, seeing, like, the difference between 85 and 55, the relationship he has with Doc in there. Doc himself in this movie is really good. And then, Marty McFly is just such the prototype for so many modern day heroes. Like, he's like the Star-Lord archetype that's kind of used, that Chris Pratt uses. Like, he's like the quirky, like, different, like, he's like, he's in a rock band. Like, he's not like your prototypical jock. Like, the principal hates him. Like, like, he's so different from everybody else, in my opinion. Like, he's just got those little nuances that make him a complete character. He's got a lot of flaws. He's got a lot of stuff he does that doesn't make a lot of sense, but he's a good person at heart, too. And you see that throughout the entire franchise. But Back to the Future, it's the music. It's got some pretty solid acting performances for a movie like this as well. And then the stakes in this movie, it all comes to the head when he goes back to the future. Obviously, the title of the movie, when he goes from 55 to 85, and just the scream of Doc, it just always rings in my head when he gets it done. It's a great movie. I almost picked Biff for my villain too. I was close to picking Biff, but yeah, Back to the Future, my favorite movie from the 80s. I think it encapsulates the 80s as well. And I think what helps is having it against 1955 really highlights, like, the pop culture phenomenon, which was the 80s.
Yeah, it's such a smartly written movie. Mm-hmm. Obviously, some of these other movies are built off the back and the strength of a pretty eclectic cast, whereas this, it really comes down to Michael J. Fox and Christopher Lloyd and their dynamic, and it's off the charts. Doc. I mean, it inspired Rick and Morty, right? Mm-hmm. Right. It inspired one of the forefront cartoons animated series of all time.
Age, yeah, no, of all time is a good way to put it too. Yeah, so.
Christopher Lloyd also popping up in The Mandalorian.
Yes.
So, that's fun. And that's it. That's it for the 80s.
That's the 80s. That's the Project Infinite 80s award.
As Kylo Ren would say, let the past die. Kill it if you have to.
I disagree.
So we gave the 80s their moment in the sun.
Mm-hmm.
But now, goodbye. It's over.
It's Top Gun Maverick time.
Yes. So we will be reviewing that. We will have that review up for you next week when that hits the airwaves. I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah, we got to do a 90s version of this. A 90s version of this would be really good. You know what's one of my favorite movies from the 90s? Fifth Element. I absolutely love that movie. I just remember that movie being on like HBO when I was a kid, and I just every time I just can't get out of my head what's his name? Why can't I remember his name? From we were just talking about it too. From Rush Hour. Why can't I remember Chris Tucker's name? Yeah, I never forget Chris Tucker like dancing in the middle of that movie. It is stuck in my head. And your boy,
the movie also had Bruce Willis.
Yeah, your boy John McClane was in there.
And the poster child for bad video game adaptation movies, Mila Jovovich is in that movie. Shout out Resident Evil.
Yeah,
but yeah, so I'm really looking forward to Top Gun.
Me too. I've been excited about this movie for almost, it feels like 2 years now.
Yeah.
Ever since I found out about it, I was like, cool. And then you saw the first trailer, like, oh wow, this can actually be something special. So I think it's going to be a really good movie.
Is Tom Cruise flying a plane? Yep.
Is he really flying the plane? Yep. Probably. It's Tom Cruise.
Probably. He probably flew that plane to the set.
Yeah, he did. It's crazy. Yeah, we're gonna rent out a whole. It's gonna be great, Tom. We're gonna rent. No, I already got one. You don't need to get one. I got my own.
I took this F-14 from the last Top Gun movie I did.
He said, "You what?" You know what? Star-Lord took home his costume in Guardians of the Galaxy, and they had a big fuss about it. And look at them now. They stole a whole F-14. Shout out Tom Cruise. He easily could have been like the actor/action hero of the 80s.
Absolutely.
Boy, did he hit the stride in the 90s.
Yeah, the 90s was really just everything.
Yeah, we'll find a place for the 90s.
Yeah.
We will find a place.
For sure.
Wait till we get to the early 2000s. Specifically the early 2000s. We're not doing the whole 2000s. We're doing the early 2000s.
The O's.
What a time.
You got anything that you wanted to talk about that you've been watching?
I've been rewatching the MCU. And I'm doing a full MCU rewatch, so I mean the shows on top of that. So I'm not into.
You just wanted to give yourself an excuse to watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. again.
You caught me. You caught me. You caught me red-handed because, like I said it before, I'll say it again. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is one of the most underrated shows that people don't talk about because they judged it too quick off the first season and a half. You hit season 4 in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and then come talk to me. That's some of my favorite television I've ever watched. Oh, it's so good. It is so good. And season 5 hits. Remember when Fist dies in season 5? Oh man, I was unexpectedly emotional when that happened. I keep saying there's like a pedestal, and it's Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark. It's Chris Evans as Captain America. It's Charlie Cox as Daredevil. And I'll always say it. It's my boy Fitz. He's so good. He's amazing. He's good. Love Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., man. You caught me. That is the reason I'm rewatching it.
I know.
So I can watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
I know you too well.
Yeah, I love that. Oh, and I get to watch Daredevil on top of that. It's like a match. I don't even care about the movies at this point. That's just an excuse to rewatch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Daredevil. I'm a sicko. I'm a creature of habit. I can't break it.
What have I been doing? I watched Captain America Civil War again because I had to. Because we
had homework.
Yeah, we had homework because we're doing a guest spot, we filmed it already, recorded it already. Guest spot on the Real Page Turner podcast. Yeah. Hosted by two of my friends from college, Maura and Donnie, it's a literature and film podcast. So what they do is they read a book and then they compare it to the film that was that inspired it, or inspired by the book. And they decided they wanted to tackle a comic, which I thought was really cool. And they asked Corey and I to guest appear to talk about the comic Civil War written by Mark Millar and the Captain America Civil War film. And that was a lot of fun. So I watched that and it was a really cool experience, like jumping back in time to I know Civil War is 6 years old at this point, but
It's so crazy to think about. That movie's 6 years old.
Yeah, and it feels worlds different from where we are in the MCU now.
Oh my gosh.
Obviously, we have the introduction of Tom Holland as Spider-Man. We have the introduction of Chadwick Boseman as T'Challa. We get to see all the classic MCU characters, Sans, Hulk, and Thor in their heyday. So you got RDJ as Iron Man. You got Chris Evans as Captain America. Paul Rudd, Ant-Man, just getting started.
He's so good.
He's real good in Civil War. Jeremy Renner. And then you get to see a young Lizzie Olsen. Her Scarlet Witch arc is just beginning in Civil War.
It's so crazy. Like, you look at her between Civil War and you look at her between that and Doctor Strange. And then for me, the one that really got me, it was Tom Holland from his first appearance to his most recent appearance amidst the other Spider-Man in No Way Home. It's so crazy, like the other sides of the pendulum that they were on before. It's just, it shows one of the great things that the MCU does, and that's character growth.
Yep. And then, obviously, I've been talking about the last couple weeks. I'm still trucking through Final Fantasy games. I'm up to Final Fantasy 6 now, so I'm almost out of the pixel era of Final Fantasy games. I will say, Final Fantasy 6 is spectacular. It's funny that Empire Strikes Back is my favorite 80s movies of all time, because Final Fantasy VI has a lot of Empire Strikes Back elements to it. Literally in the middle of the game, the villain, Kefka, who's like a Joker kind of archetype villain, just wants anarchy, does in fact destroy the world. And then the second half of the game revolves around, like, you gotta go like from place to place and literally get all of your crew back, like your party back, and then you ramp up for like a final confrontation. It's really good. As far as, you know, remakes are popular, I would love to see Final Fantasy VI remade in a modern graphics engine. I think that would be, it's one of the best RPG stories I've ever come across. So still obviously does not eclipse 7 for me, but one of these days when I do eventually finish all of these, I'll have an official ranking of the Final Fantasy games after I get through the rest of them. So, whew, that's it.
That's it.
That's it for us.
That's
this
the
week.
80s.
That's the 80s. Original Final Fantasy also came out in the 80s, 1987.
Of course it did. Of course it did.
So you can follow us on Twitter at ProjectINF_pod. You can subscribe and like us on Facebook. You can follow us on Instagram
At the Project Infinite Pod.
Perfect. Thank you. We are available on every podcasting platform you can imagine. Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts.
iHeartRadio, Pandora, going back to 2012.
Yep. You can leave us a review on Apple and Spotify. I just found out.
Leave us a good review.
Yeah.
Please.
That'd be nice.
Yeah.
I'd love a good review.
Yeah. Or else I send the Terminator after you.
Yeah. Or else I send Top Gun after you.
Yeah. You wouldn't want a fighter jet just flying at you.
I'll do it. I'll call Tom Cruise.
Yeah, we know him personally.
Don't make me go to the Disney office and get John Watts down here.
Yeah, don't let Rob get the Xenomorph. I'll get Danny LaRusso on you. He could be the villain of this.
Yeah, so next week, obviously, we're going to have our Top Gun review.
Oh, man, I should have had Rooney be the villain of the 80s. Rooney, you jerk. Just leave Ferris be.
And if you're one of our listeners going, well, why didn't you guys talk about the Thor trailer? Because we have too much to talk about this week.
Yeah.
So we will pair our Thor Love and Thunder official trailer kind of reaction and breakdown for next week to pair with our Top Gun review. So
we didn't talk about RoboCop at all.
Tough world out there for RoboCop, man.
Sorry, RoboCop.
He was in Mortal Kombat.
Yeah, he was in Mortal Kombat.
And Rambo was also in Mortal Kombat.
Yeah, Rambo was in Mortal Kombat.
And the Terminator was in Mortal Kombat.
Yeah. I do think that Fast Times at Ridgemont High deserved a little bit more love. Sending you love, because I just watched that movie, so I'm sending you love.
Spawn was also in Mortal Kombat.
He was in Mortal Kombat. We're getting real random right now.
The Mortal Kombat universe is a crazy universe.
Mm-hmm. Joker was in Mortal Kombat.
Kratos was in Mortal Kombat. Freddy Krueger was in Mortal Kombat.
Yeah.
You know who else was in Mortal Kombat? The Xenomorph.
The Xenomorph was in Mortal Kombat.
Ah, man.
Michael Jackson almost played Spider-Man. If I'm to cap off the 80s, then.
Oh, all right, guys. From me, from the Marty McFly of the podcast.
Yes.
We'll see you next week for Top Gun Maverick. Until then,
I got the need.
The need for speed. We'll probably use that line again next week.
Yeah, we will.
But it's fine. All right, guys. We'll see you next week.
Peace.